Need your daily fix on mixed martial arts?
We're going to kind of recap Bellator 155.
From UFC 198.
Who's who?
Kind of a controversial decision.
And who's not?
I couldn't figure out why, and then it hit me.
Well, don't you fret, because Golden State Media Concepts got you covered. Get your daily dose of MMA podcasts. Everything from the UFC, Bellator Fighting Championships, Extreme Cage Fighting, Invicta Fighting Championships, and so much more. Join us as we talk about some of the biggest names in mixed martial arts. We've got you covered here on Golden State Media Concepts MMA Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC MMA Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Arnel De Leon, and whoever you are, wherever you are, hope your day is going well, because guess what? 2020 is right about to end, and also at the time of this recording, next week is the holidays. Yay! Not sure what my holiday schedule will be for next week. But all in all, I do wish that your holiday goes well. You're going to chill, grab some hot chocolate, stay at home, go watch some sports. That's what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to go to stay home with my family. I'm going to visit family. Then what we usually do during Christmas time is that we just huddle together and watch basketball. And basketball is coming back at the time of recording 5 days from now. So, yay, the season's going to come back. I know some of the top athletes are not going to be available for the first couple of weeks of the NBA season, because the last NBA season just ended about 2 months ago only. So the recovery period of NBA players is going on really quickly. But let's talk about MMA here, as there's a lot of things to cover. Today's episode will be mostly an MMA news brief, and also, if I do have extra time, I will go look at One Championship's most recent event. So let's go to the news brief portion of the podcast here. Quick heads up for next week. So next week we have Wonderboy Stephen Thompson versus Jeff Neal, and this will be the last UFC event in the year of 2020. And hopefully, let's go cross your fingers that this last event is going to go smoothly. And right now, as I am looking through the headlines here, so far there are no fighters whose fights are being canceled, and I think that'll be the first one this year. Yeah, so actually, no. So this event's coming up in 2 days from now. So as I'm recording this, it's December 17. The actual event will be December 19. And usually it takes about a week's time for fans to get updated, or for me to get updated on which fights are going to be brought in, which fights are going to be canceled. Yep. But then again, a lot of fights also get makeshifted. They get shifted out, come out on fight day. No, I don't say fight day. The day before weigh-ins, yes. So during weigh-ins, there might be some fighters who might be able to just drop out. They might drop out due to some health concerns, something like that. So right now, as I'm speaking, there are no fighters dropping out. Tomorrow will be the weigh-ins. Hopefully everyone weighs in properly here, because I absolutely do not like catchweight fights. And actually, if you go on Twitter right now, they're specifically pointing at Jose Aldo's greatest moments in the octagon. And it's him with hair. And the way how Jose Aldo looks before versus how he just looks now, he looks so small. So small. But coming up this upcoming weekend, we have Wonderboy Stephen Thompson versus Jeff Neal, Jose Aldo versus Marlon Vera, Michael Pierre versus Kellen Williams, Marlon Moraes versus Rob Font. I thought that fight would be the co-main event. I would place that as a co-main event. We have Julian Robertson against Talia Santos, and a fight that I am so amped for. And though the weirdo MMA fan in me is probably the most excited about this fight, Martin Terbura versus Greg Hardy. This fight, without a doubt, is going to be the worst fight of the night. I guarantee you. Okay, that's quick short. I say it would be the worst, less prettiest technical fight of the main card. I'll go with that. Greg Hardy versus Martin Terbura. We're gonna see Rock'em Sock'em Robots, two tanks going at it. And my dad, oh my gosh, my dad loves heavyweights, dude. He's always whenever I watch MMA, at least when I lived with him, he would always come over and be like, "Are there any heavyweights fighting? When will the big boys fight? When will the big boy fights?" And then when there are heavyweights, or somebody in the light heavyweight division, comes in. My family just comes over. Like, my family, they don't care about the bantamweights or the flyweights whenever I'm seeing them fight. But the second they see the big boys and they're making their way to the octagon, everyone in my family huddles together. And we're like, oh my gosh, here it is. Yeah, this is going to be awesome. Because my family love Tyson. They love Tyson a lot more than me. My dad, on his free time, he goes on his computer on YouTube and he looks up old heavyweight boxing fights from the 80s and 90s. He absolutely loves it. So maybe it's kind of bleeding onto me in the sense that me and my dad, my brother, and my sister, brother-in-law, we all know that these big heavyweight tanks aren't necessarily the best strikers or the best fighters that one should emulate, but they are entertaining. They're big and they hit hard. And that's the appeal. And then we get to the prelims here. And wow. So the main event prelims has Anthony Perez. Yes, that Anthony Perez. Versus Alex Moreno. And then we have Ciara Eubanks. By the way, good job on Ciara Eubanks. I think this is her third fight of the year. Yeah, her third fight of the year. She didn't do well in the last fight. But she's got a fight against Pani Kianzad. Oh man. This might be a really tough one for Ciara here. I love Ciara Eubanks, but this fight here against Pani, I don't expect her to win. Carl Roberson against, I'm going to butcher his name here. So we have Carl Roberson against Dalcha Lungambula. I don't know that much about Dalcha, but I do know Carl Roberson is a great athlete here. We have Darren Wynn against Antonio Arroyo. Tafan Nochuki versus Jamie Pickett. Jimmy Fleck versus Cody Durden. And then Christian Giagos versus Carlton Minas. So that's your prelims here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 fights coming up in the prelims, along with 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So we have 13 total fights coming up on this upcoming UFC Fight Night of one by Stephen Thompson versus Jeff Neal. And this will, without a doubt, be this would be the most fights ever in a UFC card this year. Because every other card, we have 8 to 11, 13 fights. The last card I did a review on had only 8 fights in total. And the one before that had 11. So yeah, there's a real possibility, like it always is for every UFC event, that maybe at least one fight is going to be scrapped by weigh-ins. And so, with that being the card for next week, let's go and talk about so the main event here between Jeff Neal and Wonderboy Stephen Thompson. I love Stephen Thompson. I really do. But right now, Jeff Neal. So I think I'm trying to find a report. There was a report out there that Jeff Neal says that he expects to go and finish Stephen Thompson. But there's also this idea that Wonderboy is not in his prime. And I do have to agree with that. Wonderboy Stephen Thompson, his last 5 fights have not really been well for him. I'm checking up his past 5 fights here, because I still remember the time frame where he was the undefeated dude, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, you can beat this guy." He was in a very similar boat as Paulo Costa, in that he was this wrecking machine who could beat everybody, but then he kind of slowed down here. So in his past 5 fights here, he is 2-3. Not all that bad, but remember, at one point this guy was 13-1, and he was fighting for the title, and now he's 15-4. He had a strong showing against Vicente Luque. That was a stylistic matchup here. That was a fun fight between Luque and Wonderboy Steve Thompson, and I put that mostly on Luque. We had Anthony Perez. Anthony Perez versus Wonderboy Stephen Thompson. Anthony Perez fights way more. He always tries to aim higher. He shouldn't be middleweight. He shouldn't be. He shouldn't fight a middleweight. He should have fought welterweight. I believe lightweight is his perfect weight. And anytime he tries to branch off beyond that, just goes all bad for him. Then he lost to Darren Till. He did defeat Jorge Masvidal. Lost to Tyron Woodley. So yeah, it's hard to go and be impressed by the recent performances from Wonderboy Stephen Thompson, but he's still, a great fighter. His showing against Vicente Luque, it shows the guy still has it though. But I don't think we're seeing the best version. I believe the best version of Stephen Thompson was in 2016, and that's 4 years ago. So there's reports coming in by MSN.com, headline being that Jeff Neal, no denying UFC title contender status with win over Prime Stephen Thompson. Emphasis on the word Prime there. And so Jeff Neal thinks there's no denying that he's the next welterweight contender if he can defeat Wonderboy Stephen Thompson at UFC Fight Night 183. Unbeaten in his first 5 bouts, Neal, who's 13-2 in his MMA career, 5-0 in UFC, looks to play a signature win over his resume when he takes the main event stage for the first time against perennial contender Wonderboy Stephen Thompson. Although Gilbert Burns sits atop of the queue at 170-pound champion, Neal is confident that a win would put him firmly in the conversation to get a match for the belt. I might have to get one more fight after I beat him, Neal told reporters, including MMA Junkie, during Thursday's UFC Fight Night 183 virtual media day. Depending on what I do, if I do a spinning backward tornado kick and knock him out, I'll definitely get a title shot. I think if it's a really good fight, which it definitely will be, I'm thinking I'll need one more and get a title shot. That's the plan. Even if Neal wins in spectacular fashion, there are some critics that will argue Wonderboy Stephen Thompson, who's 37 years old, is on the tail end, and beating him isn't quite as significant. Neal said he disagrees. Wonderboy Stephen Thompson is number 6 in the latest USA Today Sports. It doesn't really matter. He goes to say, people talk about his age, he's 37, but he's still in his prime. If I get a good win over him, that'll prove me as a real title contender. So far, Neal has said all the right things leading to the UFC main event. He doesn't say there is pressure, if I'm being honest, but I don't want the pressure to get to me. I just know I need to go there and fight to the best of my ability. If it's not enough, then it's not enough. And I've got to go back in the gym and keep working on it. And I'm going to be one of those people right now. So, in my predictions, I did a prediction video, and I did a prediction podcast last week, where I said that I expect Jeff Neal to go knock out Stephen Thompson in early mid-second round. I'm definitely on that. I know the probability of Wonderboy getting knocked out is low, but I don't know. It feels like, okay, so Wonderboy Stephen Thompson, he's one of those fighters who has amazing fight IQ. His fight IQ and his overall intelligence of the fight game is absolutely spectacular and amazing, though. The problem, though, is that when it comes showtime, is he physically capable enough? Does he have the fast enough reaction timing? Is his karate and striking ability good enough for him to go take on the best strikers currently right now in the Welterweight Division? Is it good enough? I'm not really sure. I'm really not. Because his fight, I'm going to be honest, so even though I love Vicente Luque, I love Darren Till, Anthony Perez, Vicente Luque, when I look at those 3 fighters, and I look at the level of fighters that they are relative to Jeff Neal, where he currently is at in their careers, versus those past 3 fighters that Wonderboy fought, it's night and day. It really is. And that we got a prospect here who's climbing the rankings compared to 3 dudes who are, at this point, pretty much have been delegated as, like, kind of gatekeeper journeyman roles. I know it's like weird to say that about, like, Vicente Luque, but, like, he kind of is in that role as, like, the Diego Sanchez role of, I'm the really exciting, fun fighter who will not main event or co-main event, but I'm going to be that fighter who's going to go and steal a show. But I'm never going to be like a champion. Like, that's how I see Vicente Luque. And there's nothing wrong with that, dude. He can go on and make money. Like, look at Diego Sanchez. Yeah, Diego Sanchez, his career is kind of, you don't want to talk about the latter half of his career, but you can't deny the fact the dude has made money. The dude was able to go make bank in working a job, a career as an MMA fighter, that for the most part, fighters are severely underpaid. So I'm all supportive of Vicente Luque being that gatekeeper who gets paid a lot of money. Now, do I think Jeff Neal will be able to go fight for a title after Wonderboy Stephen Thompson? He says 1 or 2 after this one. Alright then, let's go test that out. So, who is above him right now in the rankings? So, UFC welterweight rankings here. Because I'm thinking of a couple fighters right now, and I don't think he's above Colby. I don't think he's above Jorge Masvidal. And so with the rankings are going right now, we have Gilbert Burns, Colby Covington, Jorge Masvidal, Tyron Woodley, Nate Diaz, Anthony Perez, Stephen Thompson, Michael Chiesa. Okay, no, never mind. So, the welterweight division, there are so many question marks in this division, man. It's not even funny. What the heck? Okay, so, Nate Diaz is there. He ain't fighting for a title belt anytime soon. Tyron Woodley, not happening for him. Jorge Masvidal. No one could predict Jorge Masvidal's career. The only ones here that are consistent would be like Usman, Covington, Burns, Michael Chiesa, and Neil Magny. And below Neil Magny, we have Damian Maia and like Vicente Luque. So among all the fighters here who I can reasonably see go and be able to compete for the welterweight title and have a chance is like Michael Chiesa, Magny, Thompson. Like, those are the outsiders. Then you have Kobe Covington and Gilbert Burns. All right. Okay. I'm actually really underwhelmed here at the UFC's welterweight division. They got a great champion, but the division right now seems like it's kind of lacking. Kind of is. It's got some good names like Bilal Muhammad, Robbie Lawler, and Tony Martin's here also. But there's a lot of room for improvement for this division. And so you were listening to the GSMC MMA podcast. Coming back after the short break with the news brief. See you soon.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And we are back. So I'm providing here with the news brief for today's episode of the podcast here. I am discussing the upcoming UFC fight events coming up this weekend, with the main event being one by Stephen Thompson versus Jeff Neal. And this fight will be at welterweight. And I'm looking at the welterweight rankings right now, and there's so many question marks here. So many. So, by the way, we have an official date for Usman Gilbert Burns. That fight's going to be February 13, 2021, so just 2 months away. And then we have Anthony Perez against Alex Moreno. Oh, that's so weird. Because Alex Moreno is nowhere to be seen in the top 15 of the welterweight rankings here. So I don't know what's going on there. Okay, we have Diego Lima. Oh my goodness. Wow. Wait, what the heck? No, wait, did that fight get scrapped? That fight got scrapped? And oh no. What? Okay, so I'm reading this right now. So, Bilal Muhammad was supposed to fight against Diego Lima on the same card. Now I gotta verify right now if Bilal Muhammad will be fighting or not. Oh, so yeah, okay. I am right then. There always is like a handful of fights that get called off. So Diego Lima and Bilal Muhammad, that fight ended up being scrapped 2 days ago from this recording here, as Bilal Muhammad was tested positive for COVID. Yikes. Oh, man. Oh, that's really upsetting, because that fight could easily, one could argue, that would be the fight of the night. That fight potentially could be the best fight of the entire night. It's good enough to be in the main card, so that fight ended up being scrapped. And then Khamzat Chimaev. Oh yeah, I forgot. So Khamzat Chimaev is here, but he's a fighter that there definitely needs to be more time put in place for Khamzat Chimaev. Of course, now for all I know, this dude could become like world champion or a title contender by the end of 2021. It could happen. Remember, Gilbert Burns, who is currently the number one contender for the welterweight title, that man was unranked. He was outside the top 15 earlier this year, and then became an absolute star competing on Fight Island, especially after his victory over Tyron Woodley. So there's a real possibility Khamzat Chimaev could go and compete for the title this time next year. But as of right now, we're still a long ways there, right? He's got a bout against Leon Edwards. That fight will be coming up on January 21st. Man, January month card is going to be freaking awesome. But yeah, he's... Yeah, Mike Perry. It's weird because I'm looking at rankings MMA, and Mike Perry he's got a weird picture of himself, where it's a picture of himself, but it's like a college-looking picture of him, and it doesn't look like Mike Perry. You have to like squint really hard to look at it. Mike Perry, I think there was a discussion going on. I forgot. Carlos Condit just lost to Court McGee, and he'll be fighting in January. Did not know that. Yikes. But looking at it right now, Mike Perry, I want to talk about Mike Perry here real quick here, in the sense that there is no reason to keep this guy. There's no reason for the UFC to keep him right now, because in his last fight, to which he ended up losing to Team Means, there was a post-fight presser. Somebody asked Dana White, hey, what is the future for Mike Perry? Because Mike Perry, he is 7-7 in his UFC career. He's 14-7 in his MMA career. And so, thinking of Mike Perry right now, where he is, there's a lot of stories going on there of him not being mentally checked in. But then again, that can all be like Mike Perry doing character work. That's a real possibility. Or it could be him like legitimately having mental problems. But no matter what, though, even if like he doesn't have mental problems, he's perfectly fine, normal. The Dana White Contender Series hasn't proven to sign really darn good talents. And even fighters who don't even succeed in the Contender Series end up getting contracts and are given opportunities to be able to compete for the UFC. Look at Kevin Holland. This past weekend, Kevin Holland fought against a legitimate former title contender in Jacare Souza by knocking him out while he was on bottom. And I'm thinking about this now in the sense like, okay, so the UFC's adding more fighters on top of the fighters who are given contracts in the Dana White Contender Series, and with the Ultimate Fighter coming around, Dana White says that it will come about around summertime of 2021. And if that show goes well, then we're going to have another Ultimate Fighter. So really, what is the point of Mike Perry? Dana White says it every single year. I do not know. I know this sounds like pretty wrong of me to say, but I'm like, if the UFC's having problems financially in terms of cutting fighters, it bothers me because every year he says it. He's like, we're overinflated. We're overinflated. We have too many fighters. Like Dana White always keeps saying that he has too many fighters under contract. And one of the problems with having too many fighters who are under contract is that the money is being like spread apart. And so top fighters who could be among top 15, top 10 in any ranking or in any division, they gotta go share some of their income with, fighters who are outside. And there's like no unionization thing going on. So what's the point here? The UFC, I believe, if they cut their roster, then there'll be more money going around to the top fighters who are at the top 15. Like, make it prestigious being able to compete for the UFC. 60 fighters are going to be cut in the month of December, and I will not be surprised if Mike Perry ends up being cut. No surprise. And this is me coming off watching the video where Dana White it's an infamous video where Dana White's ranting off as usually does, but he's ranting off about John Fitch. And he's like, why do we have John Fitch here? Like, we don't need him. We cut him because he's in the downturn of his career. But he's also like really supportive of fighters who are willing to go out there and like give it their all, even if they lose. It's kind of an explanation as to why Diego Sanchez is still with the UFC, even though he has no business being there. Mike Perry has no business being there. I am pushing forward the idea that any fighter who competes for the UFC should be sort of, be viable to be a champion or compete amongst the top 10. Like, I would love it if there's a bunch of Khamzat Chimaevs, if there's a bunch of like Amanda Ribas out there, like a bunch of like Mackenzie Dern's, fighters who are not like household names, but they're fighters who you can definitely see be able to go and compete for a title. Good enough fighters to give really good showings amongst the top 15. Mike Perry ain't doing that, dude. I know the welterweight division is lackluster, okay? It's lackluster. Damian Maia, he's still ranked. I thought he was retired. Apparently not. I'm not sure. Vicente Luque, I love him. He's a great fighter, but I don't expect much. Robbie Lawler is still under contract. For some reason, Tyron Woodley still under contract. I remember the video of Ariel Helwani and Darren Cormier when they were doing a review of the Gilbert Burns and Tyron Woodley fight. The first comment put up there was, who here wants to see 2020 Tyron Woodley versus 2020 Robbie Lawler? And then everyone in the comments were like, winner of this fight has to actually fight. No. The comment was, whoever participates in this fight sadly has to fight. Because if these two were to fight each other again, the fight would go by decision. It would go by decision. Neither dude would try anything. And it would be no bueno. It really wouldn't. At least Lionheart's Anthony Smith, at least he developed a wrestling aspect of his game now. Good on him, by the way. That guy went from, okay, I'm going to be the striker who's got a lot of heart, into, okay, I'm perfectly fine shooting in for a double leg and working my way toward an armbar. Anthony Smith, he's innovating himself. Good for him. Tyron Woodley, I don't see it. Robbie Lawler, I don't see it until I see something or a sign that points to, yeah, these two guys still care. Then I'm always going to firmly believe that these two should be cut. That's how it should be. And, so this is coming in by MaJockey.com here. The headline is bewildering to me. And I love the image. It's the image of the weigh-in between Charles Oliveira and Tony Ferguson. It's great because they both look like clones of each other. It's awesome. So this is being written in by Farah Hanoun. So, headline being, Tony Ferguson, Charles Oliveira was mentally broken in the first round of UFC 256. Alright then. So, Tony Ferguson's outlook of his most recent loss to Charles Oliveira is much different than most observers. In an Instagram live session Wednesday, Ferguson broke down the fight, suggesting that Oliveira was failing to submit Ferguson with a nasty armbar in the first round, came to a close, was phased by it for the rest of the fights. Alright. I'm gonna quote Ferguson here. We're not gonna waste any energy here, and you guys shouldn't either in jiu-jitsu matches. Just be patient and wait for the opportunity for him to advance and get so lazy that in the third round, he doesn't even advance to mount anymore. What he does is he stays controlled into such position, controls for something completely different, a different move, because he was mentally broken in the first round. I went back and kind of watched film, and without the commentary and how all like, oh, you got dominated, this and that, okay, to the untrained people in jiu-jitsu, advancing positions in traditional styles of martial arts, you will get points, advantages, and you will get different types of points. But the judging and the contesting as far as the commission, I don't know if it's there. I'm going to be real, I don't. With the UFC recently making a surprising cut to its roster, John McCarthy and Josh Thompson suggested on their weighing in podcast that Ferguson would likely be on the chopping block after suffering his second consecutive one-sided loss. Ferguson, who promised fans that he's not going anywhere, took issue with their claim, reminding Thompson of what happened when he bloodied him up in a fight over 5 years ago. So, a question for John McCarthy and the Punk, which is Thompson's nickname here. Don't like that nickname. No, I'm not getting effing cuts. Josh, come on, dog. You got your butt whooped. Don't start with that. I'm not going to say the swear words here, but come on. The fans love me, okay? They want to see me fight again, and I love you guys too. And his Instagram is like, F your arm. So his Instagram, I'm just going to read here. It says, F your armbar, stamina, gold medal, MF champ. Leaves, grass, leaves again, champ only, US, trophy, MX, champion. Oh man, the more I read this, hashtag UFC 256. Okay then. Okay. And then the video is Tony Ferguson doing gymnastic stuff. Do I think Ferguson is going to be cut? No. And here's another thing I'm going to assess right now. I'm going to say right now. So, McCarthy and Thompson here, they don't believe that. I doubt it. Dana White, he has said that he does believe that Tony Ferguson is in the downturn of his career. But after 2 fights, because okay, if Tyron Woodley can be given so much opportunity, and also Robbie Lawler, All right, if those two fighters Diego Sanchez can be given so many opportunities and still not go anywhere, I'm pretty sure Tony Ferguson's still good. Ferguson is still a marquee name. He is an exciting fighter. He brings people into the show. He's like a walking meme at this point. The dude is super fun to watch. Whenever the UFC posts one of those like UFC in bed like vlogs where they go follow the fighters here, the guy is super entertaining. So from a marketing standpoint, I don't see the UFC cutting Ferguson. Also, Ferguson, I wouldn't even say he truly, like, officially isn't down from his career. Now, we're not seeing the best version of Tony Ferguson. We're not seeing that. I think the best version of Tony Ferguson is long gone, but he's still objectively a really great fighter, and he can, without a doubt, defeat people in the top 10. No doubt about it. And also, let's not discredit Charles Oliveira here. Charles Oliveira defeated Tony Ferguson, not because Ferguson is washed up, but because Charles Oliveira has always been an absolute great fighter. Charles Oliveira has developed a striking game and is so on point in his ground ability. Even somebody who has experience in the jiu-jitsu game as Tony Ferguson, you can't do that. You can't beat him. You can't. Ferguson versus Oliveira here, that was a fight that I expected Oliveira to win. And all because now Oliveira is getting traction, I don't think we should discredit him and just say, "Oh man, Ferguson, he's getting older." No, I don't think that's right. Charles Oliveira was the better fighter that night, and I do believe that Charles Oliveira now could defeat the peak version of Tony Ferguson from a couple years ago. And so you're listening to the GSMC MMA podcast. Coming back after the short break here, continuing on to the news brief. See you soon.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And we are back. And so this is coming in from MMAJunkie.com. Headline being, Anthony Johnson responds to calls for Yoel Romero fights, gives timeline for Bellator debut. Alright then, so, quick background here. So, there have been rumors going on, some contract negotiations between Anthony Johnson and the UFC the past year. We've always kept hearing it. We kept hearing, alright then, Anthony Johnson is going to make a comeback, he's going to come back here, he's going to be jacked, he's going to go at heavyweight, he'll participate at light heavyweight. What's going on with Anthony Johnson? And so, we go to this past week, actually. So this past week, Dana was talking with one, it's not with Brett Okamoto, but with somebody. And it's somebody from ESPN, and the interview told him what's going on between him and Anthony Johnson. Is it financial situations? What's going on there? Anthony Johnson says that he's not gonna come back to the UFC. He plans to go to Bellator. What's happening? What fell apart? And Dana White, as he is, he doesn't want to put all the information out there. He's like, Anthony Johnson, he chose Bellator, and this was the right call for him and his career. This is what he wanted. And Dana White was being very shady about it. He's being very secretive of what exactly happened. And I'm going to be honest right now. I'm going to give you my idea here. The real cause as to why Anthony Johnson is that Bellator over UFC, to be perfectly honest with you, is because Bellator was willing to go pay more money. That's the honest truth. Anthony Johnson believed he was worth X. The UFC offered him Y, and he decided he's going to go to Bellator. And I'm pretty sure in negotiations, it might not be Dana White, it might be somebody else, where somebody's asking, we're talking to Anthony Johnson, and Anthony Johnson's asking for high amounts of money, and the UFC is like, oh, come on, dude, you are not worth that much. All right, then, we're the biggest MMA organization out there in the world. Come on. Look, no, you are not worth that amount of money. Sign the contract. And Anthony Johnson's like, no, that's why I believe I'm worth this amount of money. And so they end up going to Bellator. And I will say this right now, I'm not going to say who is right or who is wrong in this, because I am a firm believer in two things. I believe that UFC underpays their fighters. I also generally believe that MMA fighters, in the general sense, are underpaid. They're severely underpaid, and they should be paid a lot more money. It's ridiculous that it's ridiculous that a lot of fighters have to go find money through alternative means. By the way, there's nothing wrong doing that. I'm just saying that you don't see many athletes, whether they be NFL or NBA. I understand the UFC isn't as big as an organization as those other sporting leagues. But still, though, we have fighters who, in interviews, especially from women's mixed martial arts, have said that they made more money doing OnlyFans than they have participating as a UFC fighter. And when Rachel Ostovich was cut, I wasn't going to be upset about Rachel Ostovich being cut. Because I'm like, you know what? I'm pretty sure it'll be financially settled. And immediately when she got cut, a lot of people started messaging Rachel Ostovich, hey, do OnlyFans. You're going to be making a whole lot of money. And there's a lot of resistance from both her and also Paige Van Zandt, because people are pegging her on to go make an OnlyFans account. And both of them are like, no, you're not going to go and force me to go, you're not going to peer pressure me into making OnlyFans accounts, whatever. And here's the thing, I believe they should make an OnlyFans accounts. I should. And it's not because of my personal things, like, oh man, I want to see Paige Van Zandt and Rachel Ostovich. No, that's not it. It's because there's a lot of money to be made there, and considering that well over 50% of Americans, I don't know where the exact article came from, but I found it here, where over 50% of Americans are making money through more than one or two streams of revenue. I mean, they have one or two more streams of revenue in America, over 50%. And I'm thinking there, and also my brother called me up. My brother actually was calling up. He was like, hey, did you know there's a lot of people out there on YouTube, or there's celebrities out there who are doing cameo? It's like, yeah, in the general sense, hustling for money through multiple streams is normal. And I don't see where the issue is for somebody like Rachel Ostovich and Paige Van Zandt to go do OnlyFans. Maybe that's just not them, right? They don't have to do OnlyFans if they don't want to. But considering that Paige Van Zandt was already making a whole lot of money doing modeling, doing advertising, doing branding on her Instagram, Paige Van Zandt made a whole lot of money doing Instagram stuff, more so than she did fighting for the UFC. And now that she's not with the UFC, she's now making a lot more money doing bare knuckle fighting. And also she has sponsorships. She's getting more ad revenue. She is making bank right now for herself. And so if a fighter like Paige Van Zandt, who there is an appeal out there for fighters like Paige Van Zandt, in the sense like they're both a model and a fighter, and Rachel Ostovich is both a model and a fighter. And because of that, I don't feel that. And also, if you look at her Instagram followers, she's got a lot of Instagram followers. Okay, she's got a lot of supporters, a lot of followers. I wouldn't be surprised if Rachel Ostovich does an interview where she goes and say hey, I'm making a lot of money through advertising and doing branding and modeling stuff on Instagram. And also, here's the thing: Bellator, PFL, One Championship, bare knuckle fighting, all those organizations are open to paying their fighters. Now, with that being said, I've told you I'm all for fighters being able to make money. It's normal. I also do believe that organizations outside the UFC have the tendency of overpaying their fighters. For instance, I forgot the exact organization for Fabricio Verdum. Let me look right now. But I remember. So Fabricio Verdum, he was signed, and then in the organization, then they put a heavy emphasis on this video is like, oh man, Fabricio Verdum, he is like the Muhammad Ali / Mike Tyson / Jordan of the heavyweight division. And I'm like, he is? He's one of the all-time greats, yeah, but I wouldn't call him like the Michael Jordan. And so Fabricio Verdum, by Ireland, that's it. I'm trying to find the organization. Oh, PFL. Okay. Yeah, it's PFL. So Fabricio Verdum signed with PFL, and then PFL immediately on their Twitter, they showed this like really weird image of Fabricio Verdum, calling him like the all-time great. And Fabricio Verdum, I won't be surprised, probably is going to make more money competing for PFL more so than the UFC. And now going back to Anthony Johnson, he has to do what's best for him. That's the honest truth. An organization, the value of an athlete, I'm not just talking about mixed martial arts here, the value of an athlete varies between fighter and organization. And at some point, the organization and the fighter have to come to some agreement in order to get things done, and the fighter gets signed. UFC did not see eye to eye with Anthony Johnson. Bellator saw eye to eye with Anthony Johnson, and whether or not it was the right business move from Bellator's perspective to potentially overpay a guy and pay him way more than what his actual value is. You know what? That's on the organization. That's on the organization. I have not checked up on the financial situation of Bellator in the year 2020. Now, I do know Dana White, though, has said that he's like, you know what? Like, we've had like our best financial year, not including gates tickets. Yeah, but they've had a really good financial year. The UFC has. They've been. Dana White says like they've been going up in terms of their income that's coming in. So I don't know. UFC, they're making money. How is Bellator? Well, are they going to start making money? I'm looking at this right now because here's a strange thing. So Yoel Romero, I reported that he did in fact get cut from the UFC. He was the one of 60. And then Yoel Romero agrees to a deal with Bellator. So Bellator ended up paying money for two fighters who have big question marks over their head. Big question marks as in, is Yoel Romero worth it? Is Yoel Romero worth the contract they are giving? And I'm looking online right now saying, okay, how much money are they making? So, okay, I got something here. So this is coming in from BloodyElbow.com, an in-depth look at the Bellator finances here. By the way, I know I'm going to get into like fighter economics and I know I'm always talking about this all the time, but this is how it is. So Bellator MMA is being used as a yardstick in the UFC antitrust lawsuit. For years, Bellator has measured, as measured by revenue, has been the second biggest promotion of MMA, which doesn't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things. So, in terms of revenue here, Table 3 revenue share, in addition to revenues, Helsingers expert report also has some details on Bellator fighter pay contract. According to the report, fighter compensation was 45% of Bellator's revenue. Wow! 45%! Between 2010 and 2016. So fighters are being paid really darn good. 45%. I think UFC's like just under 20%, but wow. That is huge. It's really huge. I'm trying to find here. According to Bellator, revenues continued to climb after 2016, reaching approximately $25 million in 2017 and $35 million in 2018. For almost all of Bellator's existence, the promotion has apparently been losing money. Net income has been negative every year from 2010. The promotion's first year through 2018, the last year, we have actual amounts. Total losses during this period was more than 100 million. 100 million here. And the net income, wow, the net income's at 8 million? And oh dang, they had a horrible business between 2014 and 2017. Yikes. Actually, no, from 2010 to 2015, to 2018, it's been bad. 2018 and 2019 was arguably their best years. Now, it should be noted that according to GI, Goodman's viewership numbers have been declining every year since 2015. Bellator average viewers in event by the thousands. So the average viewer for Bellator events has been dropping down significantly. We went from 746,000 back in 2015 to now 324,000. That is over a 50% drop off. It's over a 50% drop off. Under Scott Coker's management, Bellator's fortunes have taken a dramatic turn for the better. Even as their ratings begin to plummet, though, with their promotion having seen 20% more growth in the past 2 years, after seeing losses of negative 18 million in 2015. So Scott Coker has been doing good for them in the sense that their net income has dropped from negative 11 million. I mean, no, is it negative million? Yeah, negative 11 million to negative 5 million in 2018. In 2019, plus surplus at 8 million. So total losses from 2010-2018 was more than 100 million cumulatively. So Bellator how the heck are they paying their fighters? I have no clue. How? I don't know. Their investors must be super impatient. But internal Viacom projections from when the deal was made shows Bellator revenues rising to 80 million in 2019 and 100 million by 2020. So they will be able to make up that. Net income was also projected that the positive share of fighters is around 50%. So based on the numbers here, and this doesn't involve. Okay, so if there was no COVID and things were going the direction as it is right now for Bellator, they would lose viewers because they've been losing viewers, but fighters will be paid more money, and the business, the Bellator organization, will be able to make up that 100 million that they lost from 2010 to 2018. They'll be able to make up that lost money in the year of 2019 and 2020. That's not including COVID. Not including COVID. So, with that in mind, with COVID, it is expected that the Bellator organization lost money. There's no way they can make more money than the UFC, considering how many events got dropped, while the UFC was able to go and take advantage of the Fight Island merge and the hype behind Fight Island. So right now, Bellator, they've been in a weird situation. It's just strange how I am shocked that Bellator was able to survive as long as they have. I am shocked. Alright. Okay, I'm sorry here, but now I'm reading up on... So, we're expected to see Yoel Romero against Anthony Rumble Johnson, which is a complete dream fight. It's a dream fight for me, but I am 100% certain that this fight will not be up there in terms of quality. Will I expect a fight of the year or potentially fight of the night candidate? No, I don't. I really don't, though. But I want to see Anthony Johnson back in the cage fighting, and Yoel Romero is a personal fan favorite of mine. So, seeing these two guys brawl it out, I'm going to watch it. You're listening to the GSMC MMA podcast, coming back after the short break here.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
And we're back. We're continuing on with the news brief here and going back to the MMA Turkey headline for Anthony Johnson responding to calls for Yoel Romero. It's being written by Nolan King. I'm still bewildered that we're going to see this, by the way. Anthony Johnson, Yoel Romero. Yikes. So, Anthony Johnson is officially a Bellator light heavyweight, and while he's leaving most of the roadmap to his management and promotion, Rumble has already made a few concrete decisions. Although he does not have a Bellator debut set, Johnson will compete at 205 pounds, this despite getting up at 280 pounds to retire in April 2017. In an interview with MMA Junkie on Wednesday, Johnson revealed he currently weighs somewhere in the ballpark of 230. Because I ain't fat no more, Johnson said. It's plain and simple. When I was talking about coming back, I was like 280 or something like that. I'm 230 or maybe a little bit less, give or take. If they want some, I'll piece somebody up at heavyweight. I'll piece somebody up at heavyweights if they want it. But why would I want to go up against somebody who's got 20, 30, 40 pounds on me? You know what I mean? If I'm going to fight you, it's going to be on even playing field. But if you have to go up and beat up Goliath, I'll do that. So Johnson added that he's hoping to compete sometime around April of 2021, which gives him a little over 4 months to prepare. As for an opponent, Johnson isn't interested in playing matchmaker, though the social media mobs have driven one name his way, and that is Yoel Romero. So, he does say that he told ESPN there's a 90% chance he fights Johnson, Yoel Romero said. And Johnson's reply is, I do believe eventually it will happen. I think it'll be maybe my second, maybe my third fights. I was surprised when I saw that. The whole 90% thing threw me for a spin because I was like, nobody said nothing to me. I've seen your name more than on my Instagram than on a contract. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what he's been told. I don't know what he's trying to do. I understand promoting the hype, but I don't know about that 90% thing. Okay, yeah, don't talk... 90... Okay, so first of all, you don't really have to listen to Yoel Romero and what he says. You can hear everything Yoel Romero is saying, but you're not meant to actually take whatever he's saying at face value, okay? So Anthony Johnson continues. Honestly, I haven't been presented with anything. It is what it is. Both of us are high caliber fighters. All I can say is I respect him, and I wish him the best in the organization. We're going to have a lot of fun here. Let's make the best of this whole situation we're in. And so, even though this fight is a hypothetical fight, sportsbooks have wasted little to no time pushing out lines on this unofficial fantasy fight. I'm reading this right now from MMAmania.com. There's already people betting money on this fight that's not even happening. And it's so Romero opened up as the negative 175 favorite over Johnson. Johnson came in as a plus 150 underdog, but money is already flowing in. Recently, closing the gap in from 155 to plus 135. Okay, so since this is a fantasy fight, and this is a fantasy fight until we get official confirmation, until we know what actually is going to happen between these two. Johnson doesn't expect these two to go fight until probably being his second or third fights in his Bellator career. Yoel Romero's up for anything. I don't know what Johnson's expectations are. Maybe he thinks that fighting against Yoel Romero might be too dangerous. I don't really think so. But in this fantasy fight, who would win? I would put my money on Anthony Johnson defeating Yoel Romero. Because Yoel Romero, for as much as I love the guy, alright, then the dude is incredibly charismatic. He's a fun fighter, at times, watching. But going off the past 4 performances of Yoel Romero, to which he looks kind of sluggish, he is kind of a statue. He looks like a statue. He's as tough as a statue, but he does a lot of head movements, and he does a lot of I've never seen a guy who does as much movement as him, but still refuses to dodge strikes. Like, he fights, he boxes like me when I box my cousin and my brother, in the sense that instead of you avoiding the shots and you doing head movements, you're purposely doing head movements towards the direction of where your opponent is going to land a punch. Yoel Romero, the fighter, and the personality, he's a fighter that's hard to describe. He really is. Right now, me just thinking about it, I'm befuddled. Just thinking about it. It's hard to explain Yoel Romero. But if Anthony Johnson is as good of a fighter as he left the UFC, even a little bit, I think the current iteration of Yoel Romero right now is not good enough fighter to go fight the question mark that is Anthony Johnson. Anthony Johnson, he's a wild card, and I don't know what to expect off him. But because I don't know what to expect off him, then that means there's a higher ceiling for him to go out there and be the more fresher fighter and pull off something that I haven't seen. Compared to Yoel Romero, I've been watching this guy, and he's obviously in a downhill slope, and I don't think Yoel Romero at any point is going to go back to a winning streak. I just don't see it happening. But Romero versus Anthony Johnson, my money there is on Anthony Johnson. I haven't seen much of Anthony Robo Johnson in years, but I have seen a lot of Yoel Romero, and I'd rather go take the risk in Anthony Johnson than go support Yoel Romero in his fight, knowing how bad of a fighter he's been, or the way he's been fighting for the past 2 years. As by the way, I'm not saying Yoel Romero is a bad fighter. I'm just saying the way he's been fighting is pretty bad. So, we're now going to MMA.com. So, the headline being, Daniel Cormier is under fire for hurtful commentary following a UFC 236 eye injury. So, UFC was in the pinch earlier this month when Angela Hill was forced to withdraw, opposite of Tecia Torres. Tecia Torres ended up winning her bout, good on her for that. But stepping to save the day was Sam Hughes. And while Sam Hughes was able to make weight, a first-round blow left her blind in one eye and unable to continue. And I talked about this in the sense that, yeah, eye pokes is a thing that just happens in UFC. And it's just accepted. It's just accepted. And Daniel Cormier is in that same spot as Dominic Cruz, in the sense that both of them just... And also Paul Felder. And, like, they refuse to let their recent fights go past them. Alright then? Like, Dominic Cruz... Every time he's on commentary, you can tell he is just eyeballing at the referees. And the second they make a mistake, he's going to mention, my fight against Henry Cejudo, man, that fight wasn't called correctly because my referee, there's a history of referees, and my fight wasn't good because, I lost to Henry Cejudo, not right. And so for Daniel Cormier, well, Dominic Cruz is all about nagging on the referees. Daniel Cormier's nab is all about nagging on the eye pokes. And it does get distracting. I understand Cormier's points, but it does get very annoying to listen to at times. Where he just goes off on a tangent for over a minute while these two fighters are fighting, and he stops calling fights and stops doing play-by-play stuff or providing insightful commentary, and then just resorts to complaining. And I don't want to see that. I hear it too often with Felder, with Cruz. It's been getting worse and worse with Daniel Cormier whenever there's an eye poke. He should be like, you know what? Eye pokes, they're very dangerous and they can really disrupt the fight. That's all he has to say. Instead, he just focuses in on eye pokes and just rants. And rants to the point that John Anik has to go do his best to, bring back the commentary and make it, salvageable to listen to. But in the article it says here, that brought out the fighter's mentality from color commentator Dan Cormier, who suggested Hughes may have taken an easy way out instead of lying about her condition in order to carry last weekend's fight into the second round. Not surprisingly, that didn't sit well with Team Hughes. I'm sorry, but that really got to me, Coach Eddie Grant told MMA Junkie. First of all, Sam is a huge fan of Cormier, and she always has been. Then for him to be like, she's quitting, all this and stuff, I know that was hurtful to her. The thing is that she wasn't quitting. She would have continued to fight. Sam got her arm broken in a fight that came back and won. I have no question about whether she'll continue to fight. You're going to be there in your UFC debut, and it just so happens we took the fight in under 5 days' notice. You cut 17 pounds, we made weight, and the coach is defending his girl. It's not like Hughes was fighting for a strawweight title or secure 100,000 win bonus, but regardless of what was at stake, she was still standing in the middle of the cage with a blind eye and absolutely had no idea what caused it. How much is pride worth? We've got to decide what we're doing here. Is this a fight for the death, or is this a sport that we're trying to proliferate? If we were signing up for a few $1,000s to fight to the death, we might have done that. Alright then, so we can just go say that the fight ended early because the corner crew did not believe it was right for her to continue fighting it. And to be perfectly honest with you, I did not believe Sam Hughes could go make a comeback. Now, there was a potential comeback. She could have come back, hypothetically, in this fantasy world here, but with the way how the fight was going, with the awesome, striking accuracy and the relentless high volume and chaotic pace Tecia Torres was providing onto Sam Hughes in that fight there, and with the way how Sam Hughes was fighting in her posture, it did not look like Sam Hughes was going to go make a comeback. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. It didn't look like it was going to be a comeback victory. I don't think Sam Hughes was prepared to fight against Tecia Torres. And if I were to continue on, it's very likely, just the likelihood of this happening, of just Tecia Torres potentially TKOing or knocking out Sam Hughes at some point in the second round. There's much more of a likelihood of Tecia Torres just completely murking Sam Hughes, more so than Sam Hughes making a comeback. I'm going to be honest with you. And the corner crew, they saw that. They saw that Sam Hughes just wasn't prepared to go and put it all on the line for just a couple $1,000 in a fight that she's not really well prepared for. And they called it quits for her. I'm pretty sure Hughes, if you look it up again, if you look up the fight, Hughes is totally fine, fighting again. She was totally fine fighting. She was there. and she didn't know the fight was going to be called off until a couple seconds later after she was standing. So yeah, I'm pretty sure Sam Hughes did not quit. I say that the corner crew quit on her. That's what I believe. For the right reasons. They quit for the right reasons. So it is also coming by MMA Junkie. UFC's Greg Hardy targets transition to boxing, predicts KOs to Fury, Joshua, and Wilder. That's Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder. He says, after I get done shutting this down, handling my MMA business, I want to venture into the boxing realm. Hardy told, oh my gosh, I'm reading this right now. I absolutely would not be surprised if Greg Hardy decided to just stop doing MMA and do boxing. I can see it. There's more money to it. Greg Hardy hasn't really shown much. Oh, okay, he has shown a lot. But his ceiling for what his capabilities can be in the UFC or competing in general mixed martial arts isn't all that high. It ain't. But he's a hard-hitting dude. He's a hard-hitting guy. He can definitely box. He showed a lot of head movements. He's got the stances and the posturing down. Like, he's got the striking down. So, if there's anything he's good at in his MMA game, it would be striking. So, it makes sense for him to go and utilize that striking in boxing and make a lot more money. That could be real. That could truly happen. But right now, Greg Hardy, he's going to be facing against Marcin Tybura. That is going to be an absolutely awesome fight to watch for the wrongest reasons. It ain't going to be a technically good-looking fight to watch, but it's going to be an absolute brawl, and I'm going to enjoy it. Oh, man. So, this past 4 days, apparently Dylan Dennis, he got thrown water balloons by Jake Paul, and then Jake Paul says that he can go and take on Amanda Nunes. But then this coming after Dana White says that Amanda Nunes could easily murk Jake Paul. Yeah, I'll love to see that. Not an exhibition, like legit. I would love to see a fight. No, actually, you know what? No. I take that back. Actually, I don't even want to see Jake Paul back in a fighting capacity at all. I don't want to see that. Yikes. The fact that this dude is blending himself into combat sports is complete yikes. I am ashamed of even bringing him up. Alright then. What else is going on here? So a lot of analysts from ESPN, the majority of them, are picking Jeff Neal to go defeat Wonderboy Stephen Thompson. That's the main event of this upcoming Saturday. And I agree. Jeff Neal is a favorite. Wonderboy Stephen Thompson, if you've been following Wonderboy in his if you've been following on YouTube, he's been appearing a lot lately on MMA on Point, and he's been doing a lot of interviews and doing YouTube videos. So, Wonderboy Stephen Thompson, he says that he is very confident in his grappling abilities, and now he sees himself as more of a complete MMA fighter, and is perfectly willing to go and grapple and go for takedowns. And for as good of which says two things. It says A, that he's not confident enough in his striking abilities, that he has to go rely on the wrestling part of it to go and compensate for his striking ability, which has been dropping down in the past 3 years. And also it does show that Wonderboy Stephen Thompson is fine trying to fight outside of his comfort zone in order to go gain a win, and he is fine winning by decision. If you go YouTube, type up MMA on Point, Stephen Thompson, you'll see Stephen Thompson where he's analyzing all the fighters and how he would do these fights. And the way how Wonderboy Stephen Thompson, how he explains how he would beat each fighter. Once again, he's very smart, he's articulate, he ain't wrong in any of his assessments. But the fact that we went from this dude, Stephen Thompson, who can go and rock anybody and knock out people, to you know what, I'm fine wrestling and winning by decision after 5 rounds of action. I don't know, man. I don't know. So, I would love to see Stephen Thompson win, but I really don't think that he's going to go and be good enough to defeat Jeff Neal. And my final prediction that, second round knockout in favor of Jeff Neal. And so that will do it for today's podcast. You have been an awesome audience. Don't forget to watch this Saturday's UFC Fight Night events. One of them, Chaos Williams, He's going to go in and potentially just knock out another dude in another highlight reel knockout. I expect that. He'll be fighting against Michael Pereira. And if you haven't caught up on Chaos Williams, I recommend you do. Yeah, his name is actually Chaos Williams with a K. And this dude is ready to go and knock people. If you watch his virtual media day interview, this dude, he's coming in with bad business. He's going to get in there, and I won't be surprised if he gets another insane highlight reel knockout. That could potentially be him knocking somebody out in 20 seconds. So I'm hyped. With that being said, all I gotta say is thank you. Thank you for tuning into the GSMC MMA podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts MMA Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.